It's wet. Dark and wet. It's the kind of weather that penetrates. Makes your skin feel itchy and oily. Dirty kind of, but real too. That's good.
The MAXX is what happens when raw emotion meets the surreal. A comic about trauma, identity, and monsters. Not the kind with claws, but the ones that live in your head. The MAXX was created by Sam Keith in 1993 for Image Comics, a company known for letting artists retain control of their work. But the MAXX almost disappeared, not because of low sales, but because its creator gave up, and because the rights were lost in legal purgatory for over 2 decades. At first glance, the MAXX looks like just any other edgy 90s superhero. Hulking, masked, violent, but that's the bait. Sam Keith was never interested in telling a superhero story. He was telling a psychological one. The comic jumps between gritty urban decay and abstract dreamscapes. It's surreal, non-linear, and drenched in symbolism. The MAXX isn't just about trauma you remember, it's about the trauma you forgot. For the first 2 years, the MAXX was a hit. It even got adapted by MTV in 1995 into a 13-episode animated series, a rare, faithful comic adaptation that somehow made it to TV before Spawn, before The Boys, before any of it. But behind the scenes, Sam Keith was falling apart. Keith has always been open about his mental health, depression, anxiety, self-doubt. He started putting more and more of himself into the comic. Eventually, it became too personal, too heavy. Around issue number 20, Keith began to distance himself. He stopped writing. Others filled in. The story got messier, more incoherent, and then it just stopped.
We're all related.
Yeah, they eventually became 25, and then after 5 or 6 years of trying to get other artists to draw them, I realized that wasn't going to happen because I was essentially trying to do it all myself, telling them how to draw, and I was pissing them off, and it was not going to work. So I shaved those back down to 5 or 6, and said, well, I'm lucky I can get these out in 5 or 10 years before I croak. And that'll be it.
The MAXX ended at issue 35. Quietly, no fanfare, no final answers. After the comic ended, the MAXX fell into limbo. Not because people didn't care, but because no one knew who owned it.
I did the comic in like '93, and then I believe it was Abby Turkoli was an executive at MTV, and I think he just gave me a call out of the blue, and I came to New York.
I was working on Beavis and Butthead actually in Korea, at our studio in Korea, and I got a call from John Andrews mentioning some new projects he was working on, and one was the MAXX, which I was actually familiar with, the comic book. I said, oh, you're doing the MAXX? And he was like, yeah, you've heard of it? And I said, yeah, I've heard of it.
The rights were scattered. MTV, Viacom, Image Comics. Keith himself was caught in the middle for over 20 years. Reprints were stalled. The show was never released on DVD. Fans traded VHS rips online. The MAXX became a ghost. Then, quietly, things changed. In 2018, IDW finally untangled the rights and began reprinting the MAXX as the MAXX, maximized, remastered, recolored, and finally accessible. Keith was involved, but you could tell he was still unsure. The MAXX was part of his past, a raw nerve. One said, the MAXX is a story I didn't want to tell, but it came out anyway. The MAXX is imperfect. It's messy, confusing, sometimes incoherent, but that's the point. It's about survival, not just for the characters, but for the creator. Sam Keith didn't write the MAXX to entertain. He wrote it to understand himself. And when he couldn't anymore, he walked away. And maybe that's okay. If you never read the MAXX, find a copy of it online, anywhere. Internet Archives where I got most of my stuff, and also the MTV episodes. It's a great read. Whoever is interested should watch it.